Welcome back to BarcaBuzz TV. 2-2 draw, FC Barcelona against Manchester United in the Europa League. What an incredible match to watch. I wish I was a neutral. I would have enjoyed it a lot more because, as we'll get into, of course, a lot of us are upset with Xavi's decision in that starting lineup. And, you leave a game where both sides really think they should have taken the lead and got a victory there. I know there's, some United fans, and they had some good chances. Ter Stegen obviously got beat near post on that first Rashford goal, which should not happen, but he had some good saves against Weghorst and Rashford also. And then on the Barca side, hey, it looked like there should have been a handball against Fred right in the box. That should have been called for us. Raphinha, Ansu Fati had some shots late in the game that I thought might give us, that eked out 3-2 victory. But we go in 2-2, and you leave the game feeling a bit dejected, right? Because when I think back to the pre-match video I did with Pablo, and I think about, kind of the things, if you follow me on TikTok at Barca Breakdown, I've been emphasizing, right? They were really simple. It was, one, Xavi needs to go with what's working, the same lineup that has worked that includes that back line of Kounde, Araujo-Christensen, and Balde. Right, we need Lewandowski to be clinical, something I've been saying, especially since he hasn't scored a goal at the Camp Nou since October. I believe he's gone 5 or 6 games without a goal at home. And then, Ter Stegen needed to continue to impress and be the wall that he has been. Like I said, he got beat near post. But really, I think what everyone's talking about is Xavi's decision to kind of subvert this back four that had, only allowed 7 goals in La Liga, different times, but in the last 2 months for sure, that back four had been really, really impressive. And especially with Araujo just putting in such a great performance at the weekend, stopping so many opportunities down the center. It was just really curious to start Marcus Alonso and to start Jordi Alba. I mean, Jordi Alba for Balde, listen, Alba throughout a lot of that first half did not exploit the space given to him like he should have because he's not as fast. And then Marcus Alonso, yeah, he did score the goal, right, off of a nice Raphinha corner. But it just felt like, every time Rashford was coming down that right side going against Alonso and Alba, he was really just toying with us. He was just wrecking havoc on our back line. And, I think Xavi said before the game, the idea here is to rotate. And that's a clear sign from Xavi that, we value La Liga more than the Europa League, which I think is fair, right? Valuing it more when we have, I think, Cadiz and Almeria coming up who are, 14th and 15th in the league and with an 8-point cushion seemed a little bit wasteful to me, to be honest with you. I mean, the Europa League is not the most prestigious competition, of course, but we were really, gunning hard to win it last year, going down to Frankfurt. And this year, it wasn't so much just about moving on in this Champions League tie, but it was it felt like it could be a statement win for Xavi's team, right? After some bad performances, losing last year to Frankfurt in the Europa League, losing to Bayern, Inter Milan, getting dropped out of the Champions League. It felt like this could be the time for Xavi to kind of show how much we've improved and show that we could compete against the Manchester United team that is third in the Premier League. And as we saw, in the game, Erik ten Hag has Manchester United really back in a way that we haven't seen them perform in at least 5-6 years now. And so I was disappointed, as we all were, right? Because it wasn't only that we subbed out Christensen and Balde for Alonso and Alba, but it was also that we decided to move the pieces around, right? We had Kounde come in as the center back, and we had Araujo go as that right back, which is the strategy, as we all know, that has really worked well against Vinicius Jr. in particular, right? I don't even remember many other times where we've employed Araujo as that right back besides in those big games against Real Madrid. And then, when it became apparent to all of us that Rashford was not going to be on that left wing, that he was actually going down the center, drifting right sometimes to attack the space. Specifically, it seemed like Ten Hag and Rashford wanted to exploit Marcus Alonso and his deficiencies in speed, Jordi Alba too. There was no switching, right? We didn't make any switch until finally, like around the 65th minute, we did end up putting on Christensen and Balde, and the team looked a lot better defensively, right? Once we had that back four that we love, it did seem like Rashford had a lot less opportunities to attack. One thing I mentioned with Pablo was kind of the idea that Weghorst isn't the profile that we normally see up front. I thought his height in the box might give us some issues on some aerial duels, and, Ten Hag again kind of gave a different look to this team, right? He had Weghorst drop much deeper. He was pressing a lot of times in the midfield, trying to go against, our team moving the ball up. And so that was a big letdown, obviously. But, we could still win the game. There was just still some other huge setbacks, right? For one, Of course, Pedri out in around the 38th minute. He picked up a knock in his quad. It looks like he's going to be out a month. And so, we're staring down the barrel of an Old Trafford game without Busquets, who's doubtful, without Dembele for sure, without Pedri, without Xavi, who picked up a yellow card stopping a counterattack that I really don't think was worth it, considering he's going to miss the next game, and we're going into that second leg with the card stacked against us. We came against Manchester United at home without Lisandro Martinez due to suspension, without Sabitzer due to suspension. I've heard rumors that they might get Anthony and Martial back, which is really just going to bolster their team, and so we're the cards are stacked against us, but in this game, there were some positives, right? I don't want to just have it an entirely negative thing. I mean, for one, like I mentioned, Ter Stegen had a great save against Weghorst. He got some good saves, too, against Rashford and Sancho throughout the game. I thought, surprisingly, and I know, right, it got some headlines here that Raphinha was very upset leaving the pitch, yelling and then hitting the back of the seats and causing a little bit of a ruckus. He's apologized to Xavi. Xavi himself said, "I'd love to see that fire because I was fiery too. I was mad." But, coming in place of Raphinha, we had Ferran Torres and then, Ansu Fati as well come in, and they both put in better shifts than I was expecting. If you had told me at the beginning of the game that we were going to put Fati and Torres in, I would have said, oof, that's not a good sign because, as we know, especially with Ferran Torres, they have not had the output we need this season, but they came on and looked good. And then Raphinha himself, right? He gets the assist to Marcus Alonso on the corner. He gets the goal, right? I mean, I thought at the time it had crossed through Lewandowski's legs, but it really just went straight into the goal. And so Raphinha put up the contributions we need, although it's a little bit of a mercurial player. Kind of reminds me a lot of Ousmane Dembele in a sense. Of course, they have different player profiles, but they tend to be very inconsistent, and I think the saving grace for Raphinha, as it was in this game, one, he tends to turn it on later in the game. That's clear as day to me, right? When you think about Raphinha and his best performances, a lot of them tend to be in the second half. And then, he is getting the goal contributions needed. Even on a day when the ball wasn't always going well for him, even when, he wasn't always able to attack down that right flank and make the most of it, he puts in a goal, puts an assist that has to make us happy. But you just sit here and you're just thinking to yourself, man, I mean, just with how easy it seemed at times Rashford was exploiting the space and how, Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes and Sancho were just launching balls into space to get to Rashford. You just felt like if Balde is there and Christensen is there, we really are talking about a whole different performance now, and that's what kills you really, is just as much as I understand how La Liga is what we need to emphasize, beating a dead horse here, but just with the games coming up with the 8-point lead, it felt like this could have really been our chance to try and take control and to prove that we're back on the big stage. And we just didn't do it. And like I said, it's going to really require a different strategy from Xavi, right? Because what became clear, if you remember back, I think it was the Sevilla game when Busquets came off injured, what we did is we just plugged in Frank Kessié, right, for that Busquets role. We have had some experimentation in the last few weeks here of, would Pedri be in that back two with Frankie de Jong, or would Kessié be there? But then once Pedri went out and you saw Sergio Roberto come into the game, it's just clear to me that without Pedri and without Gavi as well, without them and their mobility, their ability to press, their ability to attack the half space, Sergio Roberto is not going to be that guy. Kessié, we saw today some of his deficiencies appear again, that, on the ball, he's just not as confident as we need. And so the four-man midfield system is really just not going to work. And, we're going to have to go back to that 4-3-3. And you wonder, like I said, Ansu Fati had a few good performances, made some good saves from De Gea. Of course, it's still a little bit rough around the edges compared to what we need from Fati and we need from a starter in this Barcelona team competing for league title, Copa del Rey title, Europa League title. But he had a good showing, and Ferran Torres looked better than I thought. And so it really will be this weekend at Cadiz how we see, Xavi go back to a 4-3-3. But let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think it's possible we keep a four-man midfield? I mean, just the thought at Old Trafford of Frankie de Jong, Kessié, Sergio Roberto, it just doesn't seem like it's at all going to fit together. If Busquets back, you throw him in there too. But Kessié and Sergio Roberto up trying to replicate what Gavi and Pedri do doesn't really seem like something that can happen for me. And so Is Xavi the new Pep Guardiola? You know, the Pep, very famous for, adjusting his lineup a little bit too much, overthinking European ties, and people think that's part of why he hasn't had the success with Manchester City in Europe that, maybe his league performances with Man City would make you think they would have. I don't know. I mean, I'll take Xavi at his word. There's nothing we can do now, right? He made the rotations. The team still had a chance to win there. They're two very high-quality teams. I mean, it's a testament to Ten Hag and Xavi to see how far up these teams have come. That this Europa League tie is probably the best game I've seen this season. Probably definitely more hype than any of the Champions League games that occurred this week. And so all we can do is just hope that Xavi learns his lesson. That again, we don't try and tinker these lineups. One of the things that irks me the wrong way too is that it was starting Marcus Alonso against Bayern Munich and Inter Milan that really, really I think cost us. Dropping out of the Champions League group stage along with the Araujo injury, of course. And so let me know in the comments how you guys are feeling about the second leg, whether or not you think we have a chance here. I mean, we're Barca. I think we always have a chance. I think if Robert Lewandowski brings his A game and finds his form again and his confidence, there's always a fighting chance, especially with Raphinha. If he can just be a little bit more consistent, put together, instead of a 25-minute game where he's at his peak, put in, 60, 70, 80 minutes, it gives us a chance, guys. It gives us a chance. So let's see what happens. We'll be back after the weekend. Thank you all for tuning in.